She gave him free flowers for his wife's grave every week, then learned the stunning truth about who he really was. The morning mist still clung to the sidewalks of downtown Portland when Elena Vasquez began arranging her flower cart outside the Metro Cemetery gates. At 68, she had been selling flowers at this same corner for 12 years, ever since her arthritis forced her to retire from her job at the textile factory. Her weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency, sorting the fresh carnations, roses, and chrysanthemums she had purchased from the wholesale market before dawn. Elena's flower cart wasn't much to look at, a converted shopping cart with wheels that squeaked and a faded umbrella that had seen better days. But her flowers were always fresh, her prices fair, and her smile genuine. She took pride in helping people honor their loved ones, understanding that sometimes a simple bouquet was the only way someone could say what words couldn't express. It was on a gray Tuesday morning in October when she first noticed him. A tall, thin man in his 70s walked slowly through the cemetery gates, his shoulders bent under the weight of grief that seemed to have settled permanently into his bones. His clothes were clean but worn, a faded brown jacket that had been mended at the elbows, pants that had been pressed carefully but couldn't hide their age, and shoes that had walked many miles. Elena watched as he paused at her cart, his pale blue eyes scanning the flowers with careful consideration. His hands shook slightly as he reached for his wallet. Not from age, she realized, but from the effort of holding back emotion. "How much for the white roses?" he asked quietly, his voice carrying the hint of an accent she couldn't quite place. $15 for a dozen, Elena replied gently. The man counted the crumpled bills in his wallet twice, his face falling. "I only have $8, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I could take just 4? Elena's heart clenched. She had seen this before. People who wanted to honor their loved ones but struggled to afford even the simplest tribute. She glanced at the man's kind face, at the way his hands trembled as he held his meager bills, and made a decision that felt as natural as breathing. "You know what?" she said, selecting the most beautiful dozen white roses from her cart. These roses, they were ordered by someone who never came to pick them up. They need a good home, or they will just go to waste. You take them, no charge. The man's eyes widened with surprise and something that looked like relief mixed with gratitude. "I couldn't. That's too generous." "Please," Elena insisted, wrapping the roses in brown paper with the same care she would give to a $100 arrangement. "Flowers should go where there is love. That is their purpose." The man accepted the bouquet with hands that shook even more now, but this time from emotion rather than grief. "Thank you," he whispered. "You don't know what this means to me." As Elena watched him walk through the cemetery gates, carrying his roses with the reverence of someone bearing precious cargo, she felt the familiar warmth that came from a small kindness given freely. She didn't expect to see him again. People came and went from the cemetery, and their paths rarely crossed twice. But the following Tuesday, there he was again. Same faded jacket, same careful walk, same $8 clutched in his trembling hands. "Good morning," he said softly. "I was hoping, do you have any more flowers that need homes?" Elena smiled. She had noticed him coming from blocks away and had already set aside her prettiest white roses. "As a matter of fact, I do," she said, wrapping them carefully. "Someone ordered these yesterday, but never showed up. Such a shame to let beauty go to waste." This became their weekly ritual. Every Tuesday morning, the quiet man would appear with his $8, and Elena would have a story ready. Flowers that had been ordered but abandoned, arrangements that had been slightly damaged and couldn't be sold, bouquets that were extras from a large order. The stories weren't entirely false. Elena simply made sure there were always extras when she knew he was coming. Over the weeks, their brief exchanges grew longer. Elena learned that his name was William, that he visited his wife Margaret's grave every Tuesday, because that was the day of the week they had met 62 years ago. She learned that Margaret had loved white roses, had grown them in their garden until the day she died 2 years ago. She learned that William lived alone now in a small apartment, that his pension barely covered rent and groceries, and that these weekly visits were the highlight of his week. William, in turn, learned that Elena was a widow too, that she had started selling flowers because she understood the importance of honoring those we've lost. He discovered that she sent money back to her family in El Salvador every month, that she had never learned to drive, and that she walked 4 miles each way to reach her flower cart every morning because the bus fare was too expensive. You know, William said one particularly cold Tuesday in November, "I used to be a teacher, high school English. If you ever want to improve your English, I'd be happy to help. You speak beautifully, but I know sometimes the written forms can be tricky." Elena's cheeks warmed. She had always been self-conscious about her English, especially the reading and writing. "That is very kind," she said, "but I could not pay you." "Who said anything about payment?" William replied with a gentle smile. "Friends help friends." And so began another ritual. After William's cemetery visits, he would return to Elena's cart, and they would spend an hour practicing English together. William would bring newspaper articles and simple books, and Elena would read aloud while he patiently corrected her pronunciation and explained difficult words. Other customers sometimes gave them strange looks. The elderly white man and the Latina flower vendor huddled over a book together. But Elena treasured those hours more than she treasured anything else in her week. As winter deepened, Elena noticed that William looked thinner each week, that his jacket seemed to hang looser on his frame. She began packing small lunches, claiming they were extras from the sandwich shop next door, and William accepted them with the same gratitude he showed for the flowers, never questioning her increasingly creative explanations. One Tuesday in February, William didn't come. Elna waited by her cart, glancing toward the cemetery gates every few minutes. Maybe he was sick. Maybe the weather was too cold for him to make the walk. She saved his roses anyway, wrapping them carefully and setting them aside. The second week he missed, Elena began to worry. The third week, she was consumed with anxiety. On the fourth Tuesday, she made a decision that surprised even herself. She closed her cart early, bundled William's roses under her arm, and walked into the cemetery. She had never followed him to Margaret's grave, respecting the privacy of his grief. But now, wandering the winding paths among the headstones, she realized she had no idea where to look. The cemetery was vast, filled with decades of loss and love and remembrance. After an hour of searching, Elena was ready to give up when she heard a familiar voice. Following the sound, she found William kneeling beside a simple granite headstone, his voice barely audible as he spoke to his wife. "I'm sorry I haven't brought you flowers, Margaret," he was saying. "I've been in the hospital, nothing serious, just pneumonia. But they kept me longer than expected, and I missed our Tuesdays. I know you understand, but I still feel terrible about it." Elena approached quietly, not wanting to intrude but unable to walk away. "William." He turned, startled, and she saw that he looked frailer than ever, his face gaunt from his recent illness. "Elena, what are you doing here?" "I brought these for Margaret," Elena said simply, kneeling beside him and placing the white roses against the headstone. "You missed 4 Tuesdays. I saved them all." William's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the beautiful arrangement Elena had created from 4 weeks' worth of roses. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," Elena said firmly. "Friends help friends, remember?" They knelt together in comfortable silence for several minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, William spoke. "Elena, there's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you months ago." Elena looked at him curiously. "I haven't been entirely honest with you about who I am," William said, his voice heavy with something that sounded like shame. "I mean, everything I told you about Margaret, about being a teacher, that's all true, but there are things I left out." Elena waited patiently, sensing that whatever William needed to say was important. "I wasn't just any teacher," he continued. "I was the principal of Lincoln High School for 30 years. And before that, I taught English literature at the university level. I have a doctorate in education, and I spent most of my career writing curriculum and training other teachers." Elena frowned, not understanding why this would be something to hide. William took a shaky breath. "What I'm trying to say is, I'm not poor, Elena. I have savings, investments, a good pension. I could afford your flowers easily. I could afford much more than that." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. All those months of giving away her flowers, of making up stories about extras and leftovers, of watching William count his crumpled bills. "I don't understand," she whispered. "After Margaret died, I went into a very dark place," William explained, his voice breaking. "Depression, the doctors called it. I stopped taking care of myself, stopped caring about anything. I was just existing, going through the motions." He wiped his eyes with a handkerchief that Elena now realized was made of fine linen, not the cheap cotton she had assumed. "I started dressing down when I visited Margaret because I felt like I didn't deserve nice things anymore. I felt guilty for being alive when she wasn't. And when you were so kind to me, when you treated me with such dignity and compassion, I didn't have the heart to tell you the truth. Your kindness was the first light I'd seen in 2 years." Elena stared at him, her mind reeling. "So all this time you were caring for someone who didn't need caring for," William said miserably. "You were giving away your livelihood to help someone who could have helped you instead. I'm so sorry, Elena. I know it was wrong, but I was selfish. Those Tuesdays with you became the only thing I looked forward to. Your friendship saved my life." Elena was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. Then, to William's surprise, she began to laugh, not mockingly, but with genuine warmth. "William," she said, placing her hand on his arm, "do you think kindness only counts if the person needs it? Do you think friendship is only valuable if there is desperation behind it?" William looked at her in confusion. "You think I gave you flowers because I felt sorry for you," Elena continued, "but that's not why. I gave you flowers because I could see your heart was broken. Rich or poor, a broken heart needs tending, and you gave me something much more valuable than money. You gave me friendship, respect, and knowledge. You treated me like I mattered." William's eyes filled with fresh tears. "But all those flowers, the money you lost," Elena smiled. The flowers found their purpose. They brought comfort to Margaret and joy to you. That is worth more than money." She paused. "Besides, I have a confession, too." "What do you mean?" "Those lunches I gave you? They weren't extras from the sandwich shop. I made them myself at home because I was worried you weren't eating enough. And those English lessons, they meant more to me than you will ever know. No one had taken time to teach me anything in decades." William stared at her, understanding dawning on his face. "We were both taking care of each other." "See," Elena nodded, "that is what friends do." They sat in comfortable silence again, both contemplating the strange beauty of how two lonely people had found each other through deception that was, at its core, rooted in love and care. "Elena," William said finally, "I want to do something for you, something to make up for all those flowers, all those lunches, all the kindness you showed me when I was too proud and broken to ask for help properly." "You don't owe me anything." "Please," William interrupted, echoing the word Elena had used so many times when offering him flowers. "Let me tell you what I want to do, and then you can decide." Elena nodded. "I want to buy you a proper flower shop, not a cart on the corner, but a real store with a sign and everything. I want to help you get your business license, maybe hire someone to help you. I want to invest in your dream." Elena's breath caught. "William, that's too much." "No, it's not enough," William said firmly. "But it's a start. I've been thinking about it for weeks, even before I got sick. You have such a gift for bringing beauty into people's lives. You deserve to do it properly." Elena looked at Margaret's headstone, at the white roses she had placed there, at this man who had come into her life as a customer and become so much more. "There's one condition," she said finally. "Anything. You help me run it. You be my business partner. I don't want charity. I want partnership." William's face broke into the first genuinely happy smile Elena had seen from him. "I think Margaret would like that very much." "And William?" "Yes?" "Next Tuesday, you bring $20 for flowers. No more of this $8 nonsense." William laughed, the sound echoing among the headstones like a small celebration. "Deal?" 6 months later, Elena's garden stood proudly on the corner where Elena's flower cart used to be. The shop was small but beautiful, with large windows that let in streams of sunlight, and a hand-painted sign that William had commissioned from a local artist. Inside, the shop was filled with the fragrances of fresh flowers, arranged in displays that showcased Elena's natural eye for beauty. William came in every Tuesday, just as he always had, but now he bought elaborate arrangements for Margaret's grave, and he helped other customers choose flowers for their own loved ones. He had regained weight and color in his cheeks, and his clothes were well-tailored once more. But more importantly, his eyes had regained their spark. Elena had hired 2 part-time employees, Maria, a young mother who needed flexible hours, and James, a retired veteran who found peace in working with flowers. The shop was thriving, serving not just cemetery visitors, but wedding parties, anniversary celebrations, and people who simply wanted to brighten their homes. On quiet afternoons, when the shop was calm, Elena and William would still practice English together, though now Elena was helping William learn Spanish in return. Their friendship had deepened into something that resembled a chosen family. 2 people who had found each other in grief and built something beautiful together. "You know," Elena said one Tuesday, as she prepared William's weekly arrangement for Margaret, "I think she would be happy to know that her husband found a way to live again. William smiled, accepting the flowers with hands that no longer trembled. I think she'd be even happier to know that her husband finally learned to ask for help when he needs it. And to give help when others need it, Elena added. As William walked toward the cemetery, carrying flowers he could now afford to buy, and friendship he had learned to accept, Elena reflected on the mysterious ways that kindness worked. She had thought she was helping a poor man honor his wife's memory. Instead, she had been helping a broken man find his way back to life. The most beautiful discovery was that it didn't matter which version was true. Kindness given freely, whether to the desperate or the disguised, always found its way back in forms more wonderful than could ever be imagined. Sometimes the people who need our kindness the most aren't the ones who look like they need it. True compassion sees the heart, not the circumstances. If this story reminded you of the power we all have to heal each other, please like, subscribe, and join us for more soulful stories that celebrate the extraordinary in the everyday.